Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07 here on this Friday morning in the nation's capital, and we are, we're already well into it here with all the RFK news and the Fauci news and the gain of function news, and we're just getting started. We've scratched the surface. 6:35, Dan Cox running for the 6th District in Maryland. 7:05, Jonas Spilbor, legal analyst on yesterday's day in court for Donald Trump. 8:05, Dina Griffiths from the Loudoun County School Board is there contemplating changing the names of schools out there. And then at 8:35, Brett Baer. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka.
Happy Friday.
All right, if you say so.
It is.
I'm not going to argue with you. Sure. So, Fareed Zakaria.
Mm-hmm.
Fareed
CNN
Zakaria.
host.
He is a CNN host.
Yes.
He is a former Newsweek columnist known for plagiarizing, by the way. I don't know if you remember that part of his bio.
Aren't they all?
If you remember him during the Trump administration, he was a sanctimonious opponent of every single thing that could be assigned to MAGA world. He was one of the most listen, there are critics, and then there are the critics who, when you hear them, it's like hearing bamboo under your fingernails, because he presents everything. It's I represent the intellectual elite, and this is what we, blah, 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 blah. And he's just been, they're the worst. Mm-hmm. Well, he was on CNN the other day. No, excuse me. He was on, this is the PBS, this is Firing Line, the show that was invented by William F. Buckley. And now it is hosted by, it's Maureen Brennan, right? Mm-hmm. Is the host of this. And he made a stunning admission. Listen to this.
System is broken. And Biden needs to confront that and say, we're going to have to reform the whole system. I would wish he'd do something much more extreme, like say the old asylum system is dead. No one is coming in through that process. You have to apply from your home country.
Which was a Trump policy.
Which was a Trump, and also the Mexico. You have to be in Mexico to apply. I think that's all correct.
So strategically, you think that if Biden would tack towards Trump policies, he would have actually a better political chance.
And it's also the right policy, because the old asylum system is being gamed by millions of people.
So you heard what happened there, right? And
yes.
that was Margaret Hoover, who is, you'll remember Margaret Hoover. I don't watch the show anymore because it was William F. Buckley before, and it was kind of fiery and it was fun. And now it's all very, high
somber
end. It's a little bit, and not as confrontational, which is, I guess, what they want on PBS. But I like a little confrontation, right?
It's nice.
So Fareed Zakaria starts espousing this, he has this brilliant idea. Here, I wish Joe Biden, and I love it. It's like he's doing this because he wants Joe Biden to be reelected, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like, this is what I wish Joe Biden would do. I wish Joe Biden would proclaim the current system broken. It's not working. If people are applying, they should be in their home country. And if they get to the border, they shouldn't be let in. They should remain in Mexico. And Margaret Hoover so brilliantly just interjects and says, so you mean just adopt the Trump policies?
Uh-huh.
And he is forced to grudgingly admit that. I don't think he was expecting that.
No, of course not.
Either he didn't know that they were Trump policies, or he was hoping nobody would notice. But let's listen to it one more time, Patrice. And then as a legal naturalized immigrant who has been very outspoken about what Joe Biden has done, I would love to hear your comment. But here's Fareed Zakaria with a brilliant idea. He knows how to fix not just the immigration problem, but this advice that he's giving to Joe Biden will surely secure him re-election.
System is broken, and Biden needs to confront that and say, we're going to have to reform the whole system. I would wish he'd do something much more extreme, like say the old asylum system is dead. No one is coming in through that process. You have to apply from your home country.
Which was a Trump policy.
Which was a Trump, and also the Mexico. You have to be in Mexico to apply. I think that's all correct.
So strategically, you think that if Biden would tack towards Trump policies, he would have actually a better political chance.
And it's also the right policy, because the old asylum system is being gamed by millions of people.
Okay, Patrice, have at it, because that's just.
I love this. Okay, let's just. This is why this is important. January 10th, 2019. Let me read you Fareed Zakaria's words on his website and in the Washington Post. Oh,
Sorry.
no, that's not you, Fareed. No, this is what you
Sorry.
said. Let's be clear. There is no crisis. The number of undocumented immigrants in the U.S. has been declining for a decade. The number of people caught trying to sneak across the southern border has been on a downward trend for 20 years. And so he goes on to talk about why there should be no funding for the border wall, why this is a conjured up crisis, and why, the President Trump at the time was totally wrong.
To be fair, Patrice, hold on. That was a column that he wrote?
Yes.
Well, we know that he doesn't write his own stuff.
Oh,
he's already been caught plagiarizing. So he may have just copied and pasted that without even knowing who he. All right, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, see, this is the funny thing when the left sees the bad policies in action, and they grudgingly have to admit that President Trump was right, that closing the border was right, that ensuring people do not abuse the asylum system as they are is right, and why shifting to a policy that is very much driven by a long-term play of let's get as many illegal immigrants here as possible and turn them into voting a new voting bloc, because the other traditional coalition voting blocs are leaving the Democratic Party and going to the party of Trump. That this is now they're recognizing, okay, we really do have a problem on our hands. Listen, I am a naturalized citizen. I will never get tired of saying that I love America, and I love the opportunity that it has afforded me and my family. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time to come here through the legal process. We weren't looking over our shoulder hoping that a border agent wouldn't apprehend us, nor did we show up at the border and say, hey, take us. We are claiming asylum when we really don't need it. But many people like us have family members or decades in the waiting in the line legally, and so it's important that we fix our immigration system and determine what level of immigration is right. But immediately shut the border. Immediately build the wall. Immediately fix the asylum system, and immediately stop letting in so many people who are gaming the system.
Yeah, you sound like Fareed Zakaria.
And let's also deport those who should not be here.
Yeah, you sound like that crazy right winger Fareed Zakaria.
Don't I?
But make no mistake, as much as we're making fun of him and the fact that he was sort of trapped into grudging, I'm going to play it one more time because the moment
he even stepped on saying Trump.
The moment Margaret Hoover says these are Trump policies, it's like the word chokes in his throat. It's hilarious. But don't underestimate this. It actually matters when Fareed Zakaria says this. This actually gives cover to the left. It gives cover to the liberals. And I want to point out one other thing here before we listen to this glorious audio one more time. You just said that this is really a underhanded way to try to get more voters in. 100% is, because as I've been mentioning it over and over again, the next census will count every single illegal immigrant in this country, upwards to 10 million or more, and it will count toward congressional districts in the states they currently reside, and that will also shift the electoral college numbers for the in a weird way. This gives these illegal immigrants a vote in the presidential election, not a direct vote at the ballot box, although they could do that since that's never enforced, but it certainly gives their presence in a state extra power in the electoral college, and that is through a representative, a vote in and of itself for president. And Republicans put forth a bill that said in the next census we will not count illegal immigrants in the census, and Democrats blocked it. So that tells you exactly what they're up to. Listen to Fareed one more time because it's just so good.
The system is broken, and Biden needs to confront that and say, we're going to have to reform the whole system. I would wish he'd do something much more extreme, like say the old asylum system is dead. No one is coming in through that process. You have to apply from your home country.
Which was a Trump policy.
Which was a Trump, and also the Mexican.
He couldn't even finish the sentence.
He didn't want to say Trump.
It's so good. 6:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We have to pause for a moment and point out the absolute, everybody says, Patrice, about Republicans and the majority, all they do is talk and have hearings, but they don't do anything. Can I just point out that the chairwoman of the Education Subcommittee, Virginia Fox,
yes.
how much
she's a fantastic champion.
We love Virginia Fox.
On so many issues. By the way, I'm on I get their press statements every day. She is hammering on these issues every day.
I need to sign up for those. That's
Please
great.
Please do.
Virginia Fox set up these committee hearing meetings featuring the presidents of Ivy League institutions like Harvard, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, etc. But this sends a signal to all the Ivies and all the elite institutions that we're going to hold your feet to the fire. Elise Stefanik, Virginia Fox's sort of, right-hand man there, if I may say, on that subcommittee, she did great questioning. So
yes.
the 1-2 punch of Fox Stefanik is unstoppable. And for everybody who says, all they do is have hearings, the president of Harvard was forced to resign. The president of University of Pennsylvania forced to resign. The president of MIT recently ended their use of DEI questioning for new faculty members as a litmus test.
Step.
Huge reform.
Yeah.
So now when you're applying for a job at MIT, you don't have to bend over backwards and twist yourself into a pretzel to prove that you're a champion of the DEI cause. There will be no questions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the president of MIT didn't step down, but she has changed their policies to get rid of that. And now we have the latest, the president of Cornell University.
Wow.
A hotbed of Marxist thought and anti-Semitism. She has announced her resignation as she has been under fire. So, I mean, you can say they don't do anything, but if these hearings are done right,
yes,
they get results. And I want to just congratulate and applaud both Chairwoman Fox and Congresswoman Stefanik for results that we continue to see from those two hearings.
Well, absolutely. I join you in applauding them because they're doing what the oversight role is meant to do, which is meant to provide oversight not just for where our tax dollars go, but also for what's going on in different facets of society where our tax that we support through our tax dollars. Now, would we like to see more? Does everyone want to see legislation or whatever the case is? Sure. Don't forget, though, that Republicans do not maintain a 2-house majority.
Right.
You can pass as much as you want, as we've seen with the immigration bill H.R. 2 in the House. It's not going anywhere, in the Senate. So oversight is really an important tool and an effective tool. They can also overturn bad regulations coming out of some of these agencies like the Title IX rules.
It exposes this stuff. It exposes.
Exactly. And then the next step.
That's the start. Right.
The start and the next step, once there is a change of power in the Senate and an expansion of power among conservatives in the House and potentially in the president, then you can run with the ball. But this is part of the setup. And so, I'm pleased to see that these university presidents who have thought that they were immune from criticism, that thought that they could get away and push forward their aggressive agendas and limit speech and censor speech and censor uncommon, unpopular viewpoints, they are being held accountable.
Amen. And I would only add, the House should still pass those things that are going to die in the Senate.
Sure.
Force the Senate to kill them because then you can use it against them in November. They voted against this. Real fast, William Jacobson, one of the few conservative voices on the campus of Cornell. He's a law professor and he runs the Legal Insurrection website, which is brilliant. He's been pushing against Martha Pollack for years. Quote, Martha Pollack was the architect of Cornell's disastrous race-focused DEI initiative that balkanized the campus, inevitably led to targeting of Jewish and pro-Israel students. While I wish her well in her personal life, it's time for the Cornell trustees to turn the ship around, eliminate DEI programming as it's taking place elsewhere, and refocus the campus on the inherent dignity of each individual with regard to group identity. Amen, Professor Jacobson. 622. Patrice, ever since 9/11, there have been very tight regulations over air traffic over Washington, D.C., and in particular around the National Mall. And that's going to be suspended for a bit tomorrow.
Okay.
And you might want to let your kids know about this because kids love cool airplanes, right? And the National Mall is going to feature something very cool around noon tomorrow. 60 planes representing the history of general aviation is going to fly down the Potomac and then over the National Mall, which is I mean, really, the only aircraft that go over the mall now will be, Marine One, taking the president to Andrews, or if there's an emergency, a emergency vehicle that has to be there for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. So this is already getting planes flying over is kind of a cool thing to behold. But think about that: 60 planes, all in formation, representing the history of it. These are going to be classic planes that are flying over, and can't wait. It's going to be super cool.
That is cool. Actually, we're just watching White House Down with Jamie Foxx and Channing Tatum.
That's actually
and they do that.
It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, but it's a good movie.
But it reminds me of that scene where the president's helicopter goes right down.
Yeah.
Marine Force
there you
goes
go.
down.
You might want to check it out. It's going to be around noon tomorrow, May 11th. And of course, this is going to be closely coordinated with the FAA, the Secret Service, and all the other agencies at hand. And hopefully it's going to be pretty cool. All right, what's coming up next, Patrice?
Awesome. Well, next half hour, we're going to be talking with Dan Cox, Republican candidate for Maryland's 6th District. If you don't know, the primary is this Tuesday. So, folks, we're going to talk more with Dan Cox about what he's running on and what he's looking forward to. Stay with us. It is 6:29.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 now, and our busy Friday morning gets even busier, but I'm glad you're here. We're going to ride shotgun with each other here as we plow through the daily news cycle. Coming up a little later in the program at 7:05, Jonna Spilbor is a legal analyst who will give us her take on yesterday's day in court for Donald Trump in Manhattan. 8:05, Dina Griffiths is a member of the Loudoun County School Board, where they're trying to change school names out there. 8:35, Brett Baer, Fox News Channel, Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Happy Friday, Larry.
I did a little radio DJ thing there. With Patrice Onwuka. I didn't mean to do that. Welcome to the WMAL Morning Zoo. Joining us right now, Dan Cox, candidate for the Republican nomination for Congress in Maryland's 6th District, former member of the House of Delegates, and of course he was also the nominee for governor of Maryland last go around. Good morning, Mr. Cox. Here it is, final home stretch.
Here we are. Good morning, Larry and Patrice. Thanks for the opportunity. It's a great honor to be running for the wide open seat, the 6th District of Maryland. This is our moment for Republicans, for conservatives, for people who care about this country, and we're going to win.
Listen, I'm asking all the candidates sort of the same question, but for you and your friend and colleague Neil Parrott, it carries significant weight because you've been here before running for office, you statewide, Parrott in the 6th District. Do you have a strategy on mail-in ballots? Do you have a strategy on early voting? Because we Republicans are so sick and tired of winning on election night and then losing after the fact for days later. How are you going to confront that issue?
Agreed. First of all, we've already implemented a plan that's called ballot chasing, and we attempted to begin that process the last time that I had been running, and I noticed the same thing that you mentioned, and that is that we have to actually, as Republicans, go out there and not only ballot chase, but legally and lawfully do what the Democrats are doing, and that's create a one-to-one contact with each voter, particularly the lack of propensity voters, people who don't always show up and say, look, we're here to help. We are absolutely behind you. If you're able to fill out your ballot and bring it in, we're even able to help you. And so we're doing that. We're going to do that. We're running the implementation now here in the primary just to test our system. That tell you what, coming this fall, it's going to be a new day and a new game. And the proof is in the pudding. Virginia Governor Youngkin did this. He had a wonderful team that implemented this fairly well, and I think it worked for him, and so we're going to do that here in the 6th District as well.
So, do you have any sense of how early voting has gone? It closed yesterday in the state, but
to Israel as a result.
Oh, all right. But do you have a sense of how turnout has been, or a sense of even talking to voters, on an everyday basis? Maybe some who've already voted. Well, what's your sense that you're hearing? What are you hearing on the ground?
Yeah, well, the good news is in the 6th District, we're seeing what I would say is some urgency for Republicans. We have some of our counties are up 2 points from what they normally do early voting. Now, that doesn't mean that overall their numbers are necessarily as high as we would hope. Mm-hmm. But the good news is chasing that. We're still seeing it. We're waiting for the final numbers to come up. And for instance, Garrett County was over 5% of the primary GOP had early voted to date. So I think that indicates people are excited. They're hearing our message about Bank the Vote, which, helps us gauge how many people we need to get to the polls on Election Day.
Yeah.
That's, unfortunate. Look, I'm the kind of guy and I worked across the aisle, by the way, to do this in Annapolis, and that is we need voter ID. We need to make sure that we have one-day voting, and we need to, I think, get back to common sense, which is paper ballots and hand count and get rid of the machines. But at the end of the day, we have to live with what we're forced to live with at the moment. This is why we need better representation in Congress. To make sure that we fix these things, because we're one of the few democracies in the world. Our republic is struggling to survive because of the failures in our election integrity system. Britain, France, all these other countries, Canada even, does a better job in terms of election security. So we can do better as well, and I'm intending to do that.
Cox for Congress is the website, coxforcongress.org, and I'm seeing that you are inviting people to Clarksburg Tavern in Clarksburg, Maryland, on Frederick Road on Tuesday evening, and you're calling it your victory party. You seem pretty confident that you've got this nomination, or at least you must have a sense from going to voters. Tell me what you're hearing from voters about why they want you to be the nominee and why you think now Maryland 6 is ready to flip.
Well, Larry, nothing is taken for granted. We don't take this race for granted.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry for even seeing. I stopped myself in the middle of it because I didn't want to sound like I was suggesting that.
I am. Well, I am confident of many things in this race, and that is I do believe I'll be the nominee by the grace of God. And I'll say this, we are at a time for strength and not timidity. And so when I talk to voters, when I go around the 6th District, one thing that's clear is when your daughters now are exposed in their school bathrooms and showers by the Biden administration's order to admit boys, this is a crisis. When our country is shipping massive amounts of weapons to Ukraine and money, $170 billion worth of money to Ukraine, and yet we can't even secure our own border, and it's exposing our children to danger here. All of that is focusing on the fact that we are at a point in time when we need strength and not timidity, and voters understand this is our moment. This is our time to save our country. And how much better than to send someone who will stand with the president.
Dan Cox, you bring up two hot issues that I think it's fair to ask you how you would have voted. I mean, 6 months from now, you could be called to vote on the exact same things.
Yeah. One
was the funding package that would have sent military aid to Israel, to Ukraine, and wrapped in there was also Taiwan and the TikTok divestment bill. And the second vote was about vacating the Speaker of the House chair for Mike Johnson. How would you have voted on those two issues, sir?
Yeah, this is not the time to replace, I stand with President Trump on this. This is not the time to replace the Speaker of the House. We have to make sure we have stability going into this election. We have to win the country. Our country is in peril, and everybody understands this. And so I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a fantastic person and patriot, and I agree with her concerns that we need to make sure that the Speaker of the House keeps his word, and we do have some concerns there. But I would not have voted to vacate him. I would say let's win this fall and make sure we have a majority. And secondly, I'm the only candidate in this race that says stop the funding of billions of dollars to Ukraine. We have got to stop fomenting a war and make sure instead that our southern border is secure. Absolutely, we'll always stand with Israel. Have said this from day one, and I'm sickened, as I'm sure you all are as well, that Hamas is now being supported by the president, Mr. Biden, our geriatric commander-in-chief. With all due respect, maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's a severe concern where we.
Dan Cox, the rules are as long as you say with all due respect, you can call somebody whatever you want. That's the beauty of it. I love that. Good move.
The problem. That's the danger flag, right? But yeah, that we have to rebuild the greatest economy in history and secure our border right now to protect our country, or else we're going to lose our country. That's just the bottom line. I mean, no other nation on earth can survive and has survived with this open border policy that brings in criminals. And here in Frederick, I had the privilege of just winning a major case against the Biden administration, throwing out entirely all the charges against my gun shop client, Class 3 FFL, who was literally being attacked on the issue with the sheriff here, who is a 287G, the only sheriff in the nation, or excuse me, in the state, practicing the 287G program with ICE. What that means is we're deporting criminals, violent criminals and cartel members, 1,500 of them he caught, some of them snipers, some of them guerrillas. These are bad guys. He caught them through the 287G program, which is a beautiful program that President Trump has been very supportive of. And Biden went after him. And
no, we love Sheriff Jenkins in a huge way, and you don't have to sell us on him. He's great, and we love the voters of Frederick County and that district. So we can't wait to see what happens on Tuesday night. Good luck, Dan. It's the final stretch. Get out there, knock on doors.
Thank you so much. CoxForCongress.org. Thank you, Patrice and Larry. God bless you all.
You too.
My commitment to the safety of the Jewish people, the security of Israel, and its right to exist as an independent Jewish state is ironclad, even when we disagree.
There you go. That was Joe Biden this last weekend, right? But also this last weekend, Joe Biden said this.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
So there you go. That's how ironclad his support is. He's going to cut off military funding. Now, there have been some apologists saying, well, that he still supports Israel. He's just trying to save lives and cutting off military
he's
funding.
Trying to save votes.
Yeah.
They said lives, they meant votes.
Well, here's Joe Biden, November 1st, 2019. This is when he was running for president against Donald Trump. Interview with Judy Woodruff. He was at the time, Democrats in Congress were thinking about cutting military aid because of settlements in the territories there. And bear in mind, this is what Joe Biden said back then, before the terrorist attacks of October 7th. I mean, you would think after the terrorist attacks, you would even increase your support for Israel. Here's Joe Biden in 2019.
News this week, to the extent that some of the Democrats are saying that if, because of Israel's settlement policy, that they would look at cutting off military aid to Israel as a result of that.
That'd be a tragic mistake. I strongly oppose Israel's settlement policy on the West Bank. I've made that clear to Bibi when I was vice president. I made it crystal clear to the Israelis. But the idea that we would cut off military aid to an ally, our only true ally in the entire region, is absolutely preposterous.
That's Joe Biden in 2019. And again, Joe Biden just a few days ago.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
There you go.
And the sad part is, I believe a shipment of weaponry has been delayed. Right?
Yep, 100%. Precision bombs.
Sadly, it would have been one thing if he just made empty promises, but in this case, he's willing to enact those promises in a way that's detrimental to what he even called our closest and only ally in that region. So that tells you, I guess, the adults are in charge, and this is what it looks like.
The beauty of being Joe Biden and being wrong on every issue, but actually being on every side of every issue is that at some point you can find something in your 50-year career where you said something that sounds like you supported something, even if you oppose it today. So, that pleases everyone, doesn't it? Oh, no, actually, it's the opposite.
It's called flip-flopping, isn't that what it's called?
It's called having no actual moral compass or guiding light and not actually standing for anything except whatever you have to say today to save your pathetic